Today's daf is Daf Nun Gimel in Zbachim as we learn for Achenukol Beis Yisrael. We'll start again from the beginning of the Gemara after the Mishnah. We saw part of it already, but we'll see. Hechi Ovid, how was the smearing done? We're talking about carbon chatos, whether it's a chatos tzibur or chatos yochid. It was the Kohen went and he actually had to smear the blood on all four corners of the Mizbeach. How was that done? So he went up on the Sovev, as we saw yesterday. He went up on the ramp. The ramp was the kevish. He went up on the kevish, reached the Sovev, which is the 6 it's at the 6 amma mark, the ledge that went around the Mizbeach. And he put the dam on each one of them, on each one of the corners. And then when he came down off the Mizbeach, right, he would pour on the southern side. Now, why was it the southern side? So I just showed you the picture, or the diagram rather, that when he came down, he was on. This was when he came out of the Heichel on the korbanos that are brought inside the Heichel. This is the southwest corner. There are two holes there in the Yesod. One is west and one is more south. So when he came out of the Heichel, he was closer to the western one. When he came down from the Mizbeach, as we'll see, there was a ramp on the Mizbeach there, and there was a way to come down. He was actually on the south side, and that's what we saw yesterday. See here on this diagram, you see it also. When he came down from walking around, he was walking around this Sovev here, and when he walked around and he came down from there, he was closer to the southern hole rather than the western one. So that's what the Mishnah had said. Hechi, it says the Gemara, the sixth line on the page. Hechi, how did he actually smear it? He can go within an amma of the corner. Each corner, each horn, each top was an amma cube. So how did he do that? He can go within an amma, anywhere within an amma of that on the keren, on the actual corner, or the horn, if you want to call it, actually was an amma cube. So he can go amma on this side and amma on that side. He can go either way. It was fine. One says, no. He applied it downward on the edge, on the actual corner of the horn, of the corner of the top of the Mizbeach. That's it. So I'll leave it to Rav Shimon. Rav Shimon is going to say that can actually be done on the corner. That top corner, which was between the 9th and 10th amma of the height of the Mizbeach, actually on that corner, so everybody agrees it's got to be on that corner, an amma here or an amma there. It's either way is okay, right? Could either do it on this side or this side. It's got to be on that corner. But lo pligi, keep pligi, I'll leave it up to Rebbe. The chalks of Rebbe. Rebbe holds that even though it's a chatos, and even though it's got to be 4 applications of dam, but it doesn't actually have to be on the corner. It could be anywhere above the chut hasikra, the halfway mark up on the verticals, vertically on the mizbeach. So keep legal with Rebbe. Mar savar amelch, even though it doesn't have to be on the corner, but you can go either way. It doesn't have to be in the corner. It could be either side within an amma of the edge. Within an amma of the edge, you're basically within the height of the keren. The keren is above at the 9 to 10 amma mark. Between 9 and 10 ammas, that it's 1 amma cube. But anywhere below that, directly below that is okay. He says, no, the other one holds that it's got to be on the edge. That's what we said. One says this, one says got to be actually on the edge. In other words, even though it could be anywhere, according to Rebbe, anywhere above the chut hasikra, doesn't have to be on the top of the mizbeach, anywhere above the chut hasikra, but it's got to be on the edge. Meisvei. Here we have a kasha on one of them. Chatos hasibur vayochet ketzad. How do you do it? Ketzad matan daman. She went up on the ramp. Upon the sovev. Then he turned on the sovev. Remember we said yesterday he walked sideways, right, to the right. He first came to the southeastern corner. Now, there was no, as we saw yesterday, there was no sove, underneath there, but here the mitzvah is above the chut hasikra. The tovel be'etzbo, right, and he dipped his finger, hayamanis, his right finger. What do you mean? Hamiyumenesh shabiyamin, the index finger, his right index finger, the most able of the right of the fingers of the right hand, the index finger, min adam sheb'mizrak, from the dam in the bowl. The chomer begodlo, and he supported it. He supported that finger begodlo mamala with his thumb from above us kana milamata. In other words, when he applied it along the edge using his thumb and his little finger to support the right finger, the index finger. And he applied it downwards. Can I get chuta shel karen opposite the edge? Until he finished all the blood. In other words, he dipped his finger in and then he wiped it from the top going down until there was no blood left on his finger. Same thing on each and every corner. So what do you see? You had to do it. You had to apply it on the edge, not anywhere within an amma of the edge. Mitzvah b'chuda. That's what he means to say. It's not a kasha on the one who holds that it could even be on the within an amma of the edge. This is what he means to say. Mitzvah b'chuda. The mitzvah l'chadchil, you should do it on the edge. Amma elach, lesson about if he did it with an amma on either direction from the edge, that's okay too. Pardon?
How wide was the edge?
The edge was nothing. In other words, it was an amma cube. So we're talking do it on the edge. How wide is the edge? The edge is nothing. The edge is
he was walking on
the sovev, and he was reaching up. The sovev was an amma wide. He had an amma to walk. He had a problem. An amma is like 2 feet. So he was okay. He was facing he was facing inwards, and didn't have to worry about so much falling down. Like he wasn't walking. He was walking sideways on the sovev. So he was touching the edge. The edge is an edge. If you have two sides come to an edge, he had to wipe it along the edge going downwards. That's what we're saying. But the point is that's what you do l'chadchila. But if he did it not on the edge, but if he did it over here within an amma of the edge, that's also okay. That's what he means to say. My Rebbe or my Rebbe Elazar Rav Shimon. What's this machlokes Rebbe and Elazar? Where do we find it? The Tanya. Damim ha'elyonim. The blood that goes above the chut hasikra, that would be of a chatas animal or an ola bird, as we'll see. Nitn mi chut hasikra l'mal. It's got to be placed from anywhere from the halfway mark. Remember the chut hasikra, the red line that goes halfway around. That goes at the vertically halfway up and it goes all the way around the mizbeach. So nit mechuda sikul amala, dam tachtan nit mechuda sikul amata divreb. In other words, all blood that goes above could be. Rebbe says it's got to be above the chuta sikra. It doesn't have to be on the corner, at the very edge, at the top, on the kronot, on those corners or those horns, if you call them. Anywhere above the chuta sikra is good enough. Dam that below, anywhere below. Rav Shimon Omer, no, Medvar Morim Ba'olas. That's by Olasof. Listen carefully that it could be anywhere. But remember, the only blood that goes above on the outer mizbeach is either the chatas animal or the ola bird. Okay, but the chatas animal we just said really should be l'chadchila, should be at the top of the horn, right, the very top, and rubbing it down. The Olasof just has to be above the chut hasikra. Okay, so what is so? Rav Shimon says. Where is it enough just to be above the chut hasikra by ola bird? It's got to be on the horn itself. On the horn itself, meaning on the horn, but it could be with an amma of the edge of the horn, but it's got to be it's got to be between the 9 and 10 amma mark vertically in height. Amravu, my time at Rebbe. What's Rebbe's reasoning? What's Rebbe's reasoning why he says anywhere above the chut is good enough? The Chsivit says. In Yecheskel, describing the third base of Midrash, the Hahar El, the Mizbeach, Arba Amos was 4 Amos. Me'arel Lamala says Kronos Arba. Now, what does that mean? Arba Amos. What do you mean? The Mizbeach is only 4 Amos. We know it's really 10. Arba Amos Uravi. Amravad the Barava Makom Kronos Arba. The place of the Kronos was 4. What do you mean the place of the Kronos? That's also Makom Kronos Dalat Havi. What do you mean? We just said that Karen is only each Karen was an amma cube, an amma by an amma by an amma, and that way there were 4 in the 4 corners. In other words, mizbeach until the kronos was 9 ammas. If you were standing on top of the mizbeach, where the maracha was, where the wood pile was, the pyre, where they burnt the stuff, you'd be standing 9 ammas from the ground. It was 9 ammas high. Then the horns, the corners, made it 10. But the point is, how can he say that the kronos was 4 ammas? El Emer Rishus kronos dalet. The limits of the area of the horns was the amos below. Meaning, Rebbe says, yeah, maybe you should put the dam of the chatas on the corners, on the kronos, on the upper corners. But you can go 4 amos down too. If you go 4 amas down from the bottom of the Kronos, you're at the Chut HaSikra. As long as above the Chut HaSikra, that's good enough. Tanan also, we learn like this. Where was this? In Midos, okay? Chut HaSikra, this red string, or whatever you want to call it, the red line, Chogo B'emtza, wound around the Mizbeach in the middle, to separate between the upper blood and the lower blood, as we've described. Where do you get this from? Amar Acha, Barav Tina Shem says, Reshes, the Reshes. Now, what was the Reshes? Literally, that's a net, but it was really like an embroidered, it was made out of copper, but it was like an embroidery. Reshes looks a little bit like a sieve. It was an embroidered decoration that was between the fourth and fifth amma from the ground. In other words, right below Vaisa Reshes, Ad Chatzia Mizbeach, until halfway up the Mizbeach. HaTorah net the Mechitza, why did it say Ad Chatzia Mizbeach? To tell you, the Torah made a separation, an interposition, Lahavdu Ben Dam Elyon, Ladam Elchanim. In other words, this lattice kind of embroidered copper, call it, artwork, so to speak, was on the amma below the Chut HaSikra. Below the Chut HaSikra. That means it was on between the fourth and fifth amma from in height from the ground of the Mizbeach.
All around?
All around. Shiur Hadam. What was left? What did our Mishnah say? If you look at the top at the Mishnah on this page, on this very page, we're talking about the Korban Chatas. In the third line, it says Shiur Hadam Yishofach HaYesod Dromis. You put it on the southern corner. Remember, I showed you before. There were 2 holes on that Yesod. One is further south, really on the south side. One was on the west, but they're right near each other. It's the southern one. That's what the Brisa says. And the Mishnah said, what did the Mishnah say? Dromis. That's what the Mishnah said also. Dromi, right? The southern side. Is it the southern one or on the western side? Now they're very close to each other, but is it literally on the west or is it on the south? We'll learn the one that is undefined from the one that's explicit. What do we mean by that? When he comes down the kevesh. In other words, this is the Kohen. Now, remember, in the first Mishnah in the Perek was talking about 2 Mishnayos, really, was talking about the karbanos that are done, the inner karbanos that are done in the Mizbeach. So, on the inner Mizbeach. So, what was the Shiur Hadam? He comes out of the Heichal, and he comes outside. The first place that he reaches is the west, because it's facing the west. Okay? So, we compare leaving with the Dam Yudasam and Akevish. Now in the outer Mizbeach, he's coming down the ramp. And what's the first one? So we compare the coming down from the ramp on the outer Mizbeach, V'yitziasam and Hechel, to the Chatos Apnimios, the inner karbonos that are coming out of the Hechel. Ma'yitziasam and Hechel b'samachlo, just like when he comes out of the Hechel, when he does the inner karbonos, it's the one nearest to him. That's the western one. Yudasam and Akevish also b'samachlo is also the one nearest him. When he comes out there, the nearest one is the southern one. We're looking over here like this. This is the Heichal, right? And the inner karbanos are done over here, right? So when he comes out, where does he reach? This is west, where this side is west, that side is east. So when he comes out here, the closest thing he's coming to is the west. So he does the Yesod. You see, it's really hard to see the Yesod here. The Yesod is the dark gray. See, this is the north, on the bottom is the north, and this is the west. So he's doing it on the western hole is closer to him when he comes out. But on the out, when he does the operations on the outer Mizbeach, when he comes down the kevish, there's a question of how the kevish was. Did he walk all the way down the kevish, or there was like a side kevish coming out here? But when he comes out, what side is he on? The south. You see, when he comes out from here, he's on the west. So he takes the hole which is on the west side. When he comes out from the outer Mizbeach, when he does karbanos in the outer Mizbeach, when he comes out, he's closer on the southern side, and that's why he would do it. That's why he would sprinkle it. He would pour that dam into the hole on the south side. Tanya, says the Gemara at the 4 lines from the bottom of the page. Tanya, he says no. Both the inner karbanos and the outer karbanos go on the western hole. Different than our Mishnah. Our Mishnah said that the outer karbanos go in the southern hole. And Rabbi Shmuel says, no, it's on the western hole. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai apparently goes like our Mishnah, that it's on the southern side. Both of them go on the southern. Now, that's not really true either, because Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai says both of them on the southern side. Both of them on the southern side doesn't make so much sense. in our Mishnah, the way we described our Mishnah, we already just described is, makes sense to say the inner Heichel goes on the western side and the dam of the outer Mizbeach goes on the southern side. But now Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai both say that all the dam, whether it's from the inside the Heichel or outside, the Shiurim, the leftover dam goes on, according to Rabbi Shmuel, goes on the west, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai both on the south. So Bishlam Laman Dar Misod Maravi, the one who says what goes on the west, that would be Rabbi Shmuel. Okay, Ksavar Yom Tzasim first, learn the undefined one from the explicit one. Just like the explicit one is what does this one say? He puts the Fiore Adami Shofech El Yisod. And what was the Yisod? Shofech El Yishovech El Yisod Maravi. The Maravi was the one that says Beferish, right? Why? How do we know that's the western one? We saw that yesterday because this Asher Pesach Olamoe. In other words, which hole is closer to the Pesach of the Olamoe? The western one. So I understand why you could say they're both western one, because by the inner Karbanos, it says, put it by the Dam, Yisod, Asher Pesach Olamoe. Pesach Olamoe is the west side, and learn out the outer ones from the inner ones. Also, I understand they both have to be on the west. So Bishlam Domer Yisod Merabi Ksaver Yom Tasim first, and you learn out the Mefurish is Asher Pesach Olamoe. It's got to be on the west. So learn all of them out from the west. Elamandar Yisod Dromi My Timer. Amar Basik Ksaver Haitana. Listen to this carefully. Kulam is Beach with Safin Koi. Or Lishnachrini, the different gears over here. Kula Pesach B'Dorim Koi. What do we mean by that? Now listen carefully. This is why you really need the chart. The whole area here, the whole Zora, not including the Ezra Nashim, this whole Zora was 187 meters, 180 amas by 135. We'll see that tomorrow. 187 by 135. Where's the north? The north was, if you draw an imaginary line halfway, this is the north side, this is the south side. Split it in half. North side is down here, the south side is up here. Where was the Mizbeach? Was it in the north or was it in the south? Some say, we'll see, that it was half and half, right? Or was it it was in the middle, right? But you see, here's the point. The question is, why would he say that everything is in the south? Why would Rav Shimon Bar Yochai at this point say that both the dam coming out of here and the dam from here goes in the south? Why would it go in the south? Is that Pesach HaMoed? Yes, because he holds the whole Mizbeach was further down, was in the north. If the whole Mizbeach was in the north, when he came out of here, he was facing the south. He was facing the southern point of the Yisod, of the Mizbeach. Understand? If the whole Mizbeach was not like the way it's shown in this diagram, it's mostly in the south, right? And in this diagram, most of the Mizbeach is in the south. The ramp for sure was in the south. This whole the area above here is the south. But if you say the whole Mizbeach was in the north, the whole Mizbeach is north. So when he came out of here, he was actually facing the southern tip of the Mizbeach. That's what it means. Amar Basi, Ksavar Haitan, the last line on the page. Kula Mizbeach with Safinkoi. The whole Mizbeach was in the north. So when he came out, he was actually facing that Amma of the Yisod. He was facing the south. That makes sense. Or Lishachreinu Kula Pesach B'Darm Koi. Means this. Not that the whole Mizbeach was in the north, but the part of the Mizbeach that faced the Pesach, this 10 Amma doorway, this 10 Amma doorway, the whole that part was in the south. In other words, when he came out of here, he was looking at the south, at the southern part of the Mizbeach. Even though some of the Mizbeach was in the north and some was in the south, but when he came out of here, he was facing the south. So that's what it means. Kula Mizbeach with Safin Koi, or the Shachenu called Pesach B'Dorim Koi. Either way, that's how you explain. Rashi explains he called Pesach Ha'echel L'Drom Hashem Mizbeach. The whole doorway was on the south side. Because if you look, the doorway itself, right? Again, if you say this was equidistant, where the Heichel was perfectly placed in the middle of the Azara from north to south, right? And from not from east to west, but from north to south. So the Pesach, which was 10 amas high, so half of the Pesach was in the north, half was in the south. So he's saying over here, the whole Pesach was facing the southern part of the Mizbeach. That's what he means over here. He called Pesach Heichel L'Drom Hashem Mizbeach. Okay, so that's how he'll explain it. But still, even though that's what Rav Shimon Bar Yochai apparently said, Tana Rav Shmuel, in the school of Rav Shmuel, they learned Rav Shimon Bar Yochai. They said that Rav Shimon Bar Yochai holds like them. Rashi says, Hayushanim Rav Shimon Bar Yochai Zev Zei Sab Maravi. In other words, in the school of Rav Shmuel, they learned Rav Shimon Bar Yochai, there was no machlokas. Did he agree with them? Zev Zei Sab Maravi. The Simonech Mashchu Gavri Legavra. Simon is that the the multitude of people, meaning the whole school of Rabbi Shmuel, they drew Rabbi Shimon Choy to their shita. So it comes out, everybody agrees that it's on the western one, However, here we're speaking about the chatos, right? We're not speaking yet about the Ola. So, but the way our Mishnah reads, our Mishnah says, no, since he came out the Kevesh on the south, so he would also hit the first hole that we reach would be the hole on the south.
But all these dimensions.
Yeah.
These are people that never saw them alive. It happened much before that. Right. I mean, basically.
Right. No.
So
Yeah,
how
but
did they know?
yeah, they had this tradition. What are you talking about? It's first of all, most of it's written in the Torah. Most of it gives you the dimensions in the Torah. So you know pretty much what it is. And a lot of it was a tradition that they had.
This side of that.
Yeah.
That's all.
That's all the oral tradition. That's the Gemara. That's the oral tradition. Because we're trying to explain how did it work? How did the Pesukim work? The way that the Mizbeach was constructed was all min Hashemayim. Hashem told Bezalel and Moshe exactly how to do everything, and they did it. And that was tradition. That's right. Yes, I know. That's here. Gemara's explaining how you did it, right? How you did it. How did you do the zrikas? He had to do 4 zrikas. How did you do it? So he explains how you did it. That was the tradition that they had. Says the Mishnah. Ha'ola. What about the ola? Now the ola animal, we said, where does that dam go? Below the chut sikra. The ola bird. That's the anomaly over here, if you want to say it. That the chatas animal is above. The ola bird is above the chut sikra. Right. The ola animal is below. The ola. What I say, the ola animal is below and the ola bird is above. The chatas animal is above, the chatas bird is below. So now we're talking about the ola. Ha'ola kodesh kodashim. Now he says kadshe kodshim. The Mishnah didn't say when by the chatas, it didn't say kadshe kodshim. We'll see. Why does it say kadshe kodshim? What is it? Shchitasa b'tzafon. Why? Because the ola is kadshe kodshim. The kadshe kodshim all have to be in the north. What are kadshe kodshim? Shalmei tzibur, chatas, osham, ola have to be in the north. North is more sanctified. The kibul dama klisharis b'tzafon. And you have to receive the blood in the klisharis also in the north. The damaton shtei matanos. It's done. Also has to go on the 4 sides, but it's only done with 2 applications, as I explained before. On the southwest corner and northwest corner, sprinkle the blood. Shein arba. That's shtei matanos shein arba. Utuna hefshit. But the ola also needs. The Torah says you have to be. You want to know how do you know you have to skin the animal? The ola. The Torah says so. You have to have hefshit. And you have to cut it up, and then it's totally burnt on zech. So the ola animal, as the ola bird is totally burnt. It's not eaten. The whole thing is burnt. Ola my tamatani ola kodesh kodashim. Why did he say by ola? Didn't say by chatos kodesh kodashim. So why did he say ola kodesh kodashim? Why did the Mishnah say kodesh kodashim? Shim lo ksibba kodesh kodashim. It didn't say in Befeivish. Didn't say kodesh kodashim. So he's teaching you that since it's all burnt, therefore it's kodesh kodashim. And Rashi points out, where the lines right before the lines get wide. Even kashakam, the part that goes on the mizbeach is also kachim. And Rashi goes on to say whether it's the dam or the emurim, anything goes on the mizbeach is kodesh kodashim. Okay. How did he do that? Right? It didn't say beferish. You're right, Moshe. It didn't say beferish Torah. How did he apply the ola? So how did he do it? So it's machlokas, right? We're unsure. Amarav, no saying, b'chozim no saying. He goes to each. We said he goes on the 2 corners, the southwest corner and the southwest corner and the northeast corner. Now we explained before you don't do the dam where there's no yisod, so it had to be the southwest and the northeast. Okay, when he goes to the southwest and northeast, does he apply some of the? Let's say he's in the southwest corner. Does he do the south? He applies some of the dam on the south and some on the west. And then when he goes to the northeast, he does some on the north and some on the east with 2 applications, or is it 1 application? So Amrav Nosin b'chosim Nosin, 2 applications. So Shmuel Amar Matana Achas, he does 1 kamin gamma. It's like a line with a I think he's a kamat. Rashi says like a kaf. I think he means like a heel, so to speak, like a nun. It's more like a nun. In other words, it's a line and then it crosses over like a nun. So he does it like at the very edge of the southwest corner, northeast corner, and he sprinkles the dam so it goes on both walls. I might think that 1 zrika is good enough. 1 zrika is good. Now, 1 zrika b'di'evet is good enough. We said according to Beisol even by chabachatas. But l'chatchila, right? Should you do 2 or should you do 4? He says I might think 1 is good enough. Tamalom Masafif. The pasuk says he's got to sprinkle the dam, apply the dam around the mizbeach. Well, with 1 sprinkling, you can't get around the mizbeach, right? Physically, that wouldn't work. right? The Esav of Yachal Yakifenim B'chutz. So I might think maybe he should surround the whole Mizbeach like a thread, right? Go all the way around, like, take a paintbrush, so to speak, and go all the way around. Tamla V'zarko, you've got to sprinkle it. Well, how's that going to work? How can you sprinkle it and go all the way around? How's that going to work? Okay, said Kamin Gama. This is very simple. You go to these two opposite corners and you sprinkle one on one corner, one on the other corner, and you've got all four sides. Shmuel Omer. Shmuel says, Nemerkan Saviv and Emelon Saviv. It says Saviv over here by Olav and Emelon Saviv. It says Saviv by Chatos. Malon Pisuk Babrantos. Just like over there, it's four separate applications, right? By Chatos, it's four separate applications, as we said before. And Amad Aleph, on the four corners or anywhere, according to Rebbe, anywhere above the Chut HaSikra, you have to have four applications. Afkan Pisuk Babrantos. So Bishmol says, right, like Rav Nassan, like Rav rather. I said like Rav Nassan. So Rav. So Bishmol says like Rav that, or Rav says like Rabbi Shmuel, that you have to have four separate applications, and Shmuel goes like the first Tana, right? It goes like the first Tana, Tanakama, who says that it's two applications, which is like four, because you do it on the two corners, and on each corner you're actually getting two sides. Wait a minute. So maybe just like if you're learning out from Chatos, we have to have four corners. So maybe they're just like it's got to be on four corners. Maybe it also be on four corners. Maybe here, according to Bishmuel, who went like Rav, that maybe you should make four applications on four corners. Amra, you can't have that. Ola tuni yisod. And Ola has to have the yisod. It says yisod. So if you do it on the southeast corner, there's no yisod there. There's no yisod. All right. What about by chatos? What about there's no yisod there? There is, because the dam is going, at least since you're doing it above the on the corners, it's going to go down. It's going to hit the sovev eventually. So there is effectively a yisod there. The sovev is like the yisod. The keramis rachas dramis lo hayilosod. The southeast corner had no yisod, so it can't. And since it has to be below the chut hasikra, right? That's learned out. It's got to be below the chut hasikra. Therefore, if you sprinkle the dam on the southeast side, meaning you did each side of each corner, the dam would just go down on the ground. There was no yisod there. My time, why did the southeast corner have no yisod? We've shown the diagrams and showed how the yisod goes on the west and goes on the north and goes a little on one amma into the south and one amma into the east on the northeast side. But why was there no yisod on the southeast side? Basically on most of the south and most of the east? It wasn't in the share of the raven or the plunderer Binyamin, right? The pasuk says that when Yaakov gave the brachos, he says, Binyamin Ze'ev Toref. What did he say about Binyamin? He's like a wolf that plunders, that attacks its prey. So he's called, and that wasn't in the chelik of Binyamin. This is the diagram. If you look in your Gemaras, in the lower left-hand side in Rashi, you'll see a diagram there. Shows the Mizbech. It shows the west and the north, which has a Yisod. And in the south and in the east, there is no Yisod for most of it, right? Why is that? Rav Shmuel Bar Yitzchak in the Gemara. I'm making 6 lines in the bottom of the page in the Gemara. Mizbech ocha b'chalko sheYehuda amma. The Mizbech took one amma in the share of Yehuda. Basically, the Mizbech was promised to, the area of the Mizbech was promised to Binyamin. But Yehuda, in other words, the whole Mizbech, besides the area you see that's Yehuda, you see that in the south and the east, that area was Yehuda's area. And Yehuda was not Zocha that the Yisod should be there. The Yisod was really part of the Mizbech, and the Mizbech actually occupied that area of Yehuda, so he didn't want any Yisod there. The Mizbech occupied one amma in the share of Yehuda. There was like a strip from the chelik of Yehuda and went into share Binyamin. Binyamin, basically the whole area of the base of Mikdash was Binyamin's, but a little bit of a strip went from Yehuda into that and took that east and south. Binyamin was upset about that. It was his share, right? Everybody wants their share. Every day he cried. He wanted to take it back. Right? He covers it. He yearned for it every day. Because he yearned for it, he wanted the whole thing and say, Binyamin, who was a tzaddik, merited v'nasish b'zichon l'kadosh baruch Hu, and he became the host for Kadosh Baruch Hu. Shneimar u'bank seifav shechein. What do we mean by the haste? Where's Hashem's real Shechina? In the Kodesh Kodashim, which only the Kohen Gadol was allowed to go into once a year in Yom Kippur. Nobody else was allowed in there; they would die. So the Kodesh Kodashim was certainly in the share of Binyamin because he yearned for the whole thing. So that's the point. That's why there was no physical, according to as we'll see, as a machlokes was a physical or not. There was no amma. There was no yisod rather in the southeast corner. Not just the corner, but basically the whole south side and the whole east side up until on the east side up until the northeast corner, and on the south side there was no yisod up down all the way up to the southwest corner. Meisvei olas of ketzad. We're going to see later on how is an olas of brought. First of all, we're going to see it was brought in the southeast corner. In other words, the coin went up. Remember, I said which bloods go above the chutta sikra? Chatas animal and ola bird. Here we're talking about the ola bird. Now the ola bird had to be above the chutta sikra. So how was it done? And he was learned out that he was in the southeast corner when he did it on the mizbeach. So Kate said hayanasa hayamolikas rosha. He did malika on the nape of the neck, the back of the neck, mimul arpa opposite the neck, umavdil, and he cut both simanim of the bird. He had to basically cut off the head of the bird. He decapitated the bird. And he squeezed out the blood on the wall of his back. Remember, yesterday we talked about the chatos. The chatos he first sprinkled with the body of the bird, sprinkled it, and then he squeezed it out. With the oli, just squeezed it out. Afterwards, he did the head also, he squeezed that out. If there was no yesod, ba'avir ba'amud kafet. So he was just doing it in the middle of the air. In other words, if he was on the southeast corner, the Kohen was standing on the southeast corner of the upper part of the mizbeach, and he squeezed out the blood would go down on the ground. There was no yesod there. How did that happen? This is what they made this condition. Avir the Binyamin. The ground was Yehuda's, but the airspace was Binyamin's. Like we have today, where certain people own the ground on which your apartment's built, and your apartment is up in the air, but you don't have the ground, right? So that's what happened here too. Avir the Binyamin. The airspace above was Binyamin's. The karka was Yehuda's, right? Now, what do we mean by that? So what does that help? It still would go down on the ground. So Rashi explains that what happened was this. Listen carefully. The Kohen would stand when he did the Ola bird. He wouldn't go up all the way on the kafsh like on the he wouldn't go all the way to the top of the mizbeach. He would stand on the kevesh, on the not on the kevesh, on the sovev, on the ramp, and he would squeeze out. He did the operation here, and he would squeeze out the blood. Now, number one, didn't the blood have to be done up above the chutta sikra? Yeah, he could bend over. He's standing here on the ramp on the sovev. He would bend over and squeeze out the blood. It would still be above the chutta sikra. Okay, but the problem is, wouldn't the blood go down on the ground where there was no yesod? The answer is that they made, since only the ground belonged to Yehuda, but the airspace, let's say from 3 amos and above, belonged to Binyamin, they made a little ledge there. They stuck a little ledge out so that the down would go on that ledge. They stuck out another ledge there. Rashi says it. Rashi there was a little projection. A little projection they made out, connected osakaran by that corn. In other words, there was no yesod on the ground, but they made a little projection there to receive the blood as it flowed down from the point where the Kohen had squeezed out the bird's blood on the wall. Where he squeezed it out was above the chutta sikra, but it went down below. The gravity would pull the blood down. So when it went down, it went on that little ledge, that little projection. It was called like, it was considered like the kirs. Aval yesod lo mikri. So yesod foundation means it's got to be foundation in the ground. If it's not in the ground, it's not called the foundation. Milo hava yesod. What does it mean there was no yesod on the southern part? Rav Omer binyan. Literally, like we've described in the pictures, all these pictures show that there was no yesod on the southeast corner, and that means most of the south and most of these had no yesod. Levi Omer b'dam. Levi says, no, there was a full yesod there, but it means that you didn't put blood over there. It didn't have the sanctification because it was in Yehuda's share and not in Binyamin's. You didn't actually put the blood there. Rav Matargim. Rav translates the words. What does the word say in the Torah? Yaakov Avinu said, "Baboker yochalad." He will eat his prey in the morning. Mitargum, he translates that. What's the tirgum? Ba'achsanta yasmin medacha. In his share, in his legacy, in his Yerusha, they will be built an altar, right? So he says, so it's got to be built. It's got to be built totally in his share. That's why Rav said that Rav says literally, Binyan, that his share, the altar can only be built in his share. So if some of the share was Yehuda's, he can't build an altar. The holiness will be in his share. The place that you put the damim will only be in his share. So according to Levi, there really was a yesod all the way around the whole mizbeach, but you didn't put any blood there in the southeast corner because it was really Yehuda's share. Who is right about this? As we'll see tomorrow, we'll bring proofs to one way or another. Was there physically a yesod there? Rav says there was no yesod there, like we've learned. And Levi says, no, there was a yesod, but it just didn't have the sanctification, so you couldn't put the blood there. All right, we'll pick him here tomorrow, Mr. Shem. Have a good day, everybody.
I hope it never rained when you do all this, because the town would wash down.